As introduced, I'm from GFANZ, the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero. And I'm the managing director at the APEC network, the Asia Pacific network, and I'm based in Singapore. So GFANZ, you might have heard, is an alliance of alliances. It's a place where the financial institutions that are committed to bringing their um, emissions to net zero by 2050 are brought together, and we bring together the 9 sector-specific alliances that you see on the left hand of your screen. They comprise about over 700 firms from 50 jurisdictions. And actually in New Zealand, we did a recent count, and there's already 10 financial institutions from New Zealand that are within the 9 net zero sector specific alliances that you see here. And what we do is that we are supporting financial institutions to really drive their financing to support the real economy's decarbonization. And when we say that, that's what we're really doing is I'll show you the next slide. What we're really driving is to get financing to go into transition financing, which is what we define as all the financing that supports the net zero transition. So it would include those financing that are traditionally regarded as green. So these will be financing the climate solution, which is financing renewable energy or electric vehicles. And those companies that are already green, which we call aligned companies, so entities that are already aligned to a 1.5-degree pathway. But more importantly, in this region, the Asia Pacific, we need to finance more companies that are currently brown and need to go green. So companies that are committed to aligning to a 1.5 degree but may not be there at the moment. And we call that aligning companies. And also in Asia Pacific, we have a lot of existing high emitting assets in our economy that are still young and are not on the pathway to the Paris Agreement. So they need to be accelerated in their phase out. And we think this is really important in the Asia Pacific as well, especially the coal-fired power plants. So what we the approach to financing these is that we recognize the importance of taxonomies that classify economic activities, and CBI has just introduced what they are. But we also think that it can be very well complemented with principle-based approaches. So in Asia, in the taxonomy space, I just wanted to highlight that traditionally, while taxonomies used to be called green taxonomies, the emerging taxonomies today are already starting to think about how to classify economic activities that are transitioning, and also the accelerated or the managed phase out of high emitting assets. And you can see that in the latest ASEAN taxonomy, where they have introduced amber tiers, which are transitional activities, and also have also addressed the coal plant managed phase out as well in their version 2 taxonomy that was issued last year. Singapore Asia taxonomy has also made that same approach, where they've got a transitional amber tier as well. Currently, Hong Kong and also China are also developing their transition finance taxonomies as well. And EU and Canada have got taxonomies that also address these kind of transitional activities in a slightly different approach. And on the right-hand side, you see the principle-based approaches that are for example, the approach that is taken by Japan, where they have set out principle-based guidelines on what is transition finance, and OECD also has guidance around that as well. And for GFANZ, we are trying to approach this in a principled approach as well. So what is difficult about transitional companies or transitional activities is that today they are brown and you are expecting them or you are supporting them to go green, but the effect may not be so immediate today. So it's quite hard for us to distinguish between whether you are just supporting a business as usual company or an activity, or whether you're genuinely supporting their transition. And this is where I think the latest discussions around taxonomies and sustainable finance in general is in terms of what is credible and impactful financing for the transition, and that definition or that what are the criteria, what are the guardrails, is still a evolving space right now. So these kind of publications that we have been developing are trying to support the global discussion on what are the criteria, what are the characteristics that really, what do we mean when we finance a brown to green transition? And I think that kind of discussion will come up hopefully in your discussion on your taxonomy, because it is still an evolving space. So just to quickly introduce how we are approaching this, then in addition to kind of trying to understand what good looks like in transition finance, we are also developing a lot of activities on the metrics of it as well. So when you're supporting a transition, you realize that actually the financed emission metrics that we use in the sustainable finance space is measures your financing of today's emission, and it doesn't help you to really assess a transitioning company, and that we are looking for more forward-looking metrics to supplement the more present and backward-looking financed emission metrics. So we're working on metrics. And the other thing that I wanted to just quickly introduce is the transition plan. So when we really need to scale up all of the different four financing strategies that I have introduced, so we need to scale up all the green activities and the green economy, but also, the shifting of the brown economy to the green. And so what we are talking about today is no longer a niche activity on sustainable finance, but the whole of the financial institution shifting their business strategy towards supporting the net zero transition. And you are supporting companies to also make a whole institutional transition as well into the net zero economy. So that means that we need a holistic plan, an action plan, to really change your governance and the offering that you provide in terms of your products and services, as well as how you are engaging with your customers to ensure that there is demand for the products that you are offering on transition finance, and that you are able to use new metrics and targets that appropriately reflect that transition that you are trying to make. So we think that transition planning is an essential tool and an activity that is required to supplement the taxonomies and the principle-based definitions around what is needed to be financed. So this is where once we know what we need to finance, this is the actual implementation, the delivery mechanism that is needed. And we see a lot of regulators now starting to also nudge financial institutions and real economy companies to start planning. And for financial institutions, it's really important for their clients or their investee companies to have their own transition plan as well, because when you are applying the taxonomy or the principle-based transition finance framework, you need to you need financial institutions to assess their strategy and the transition plan of a real economy on whether they're really going to be transitioning and how they are transitioning, and that credibility needs to be assessed. And that's also another kind of area of work that needs to complement the taxonomy that New Zealand is developing. So I think I will finish my presentation here, and thank you very much for listening.